Welcome back, everybody, to the Inside Sports Podcast. That's with the DE capitalized, everybody. Always, as usual. But we got no Cole Daly this week. What a crisis. Where is Cole Daly at? Everybody's asking me, where's Cole Daly at?
Where is Cole Daly, JB?
Cole Daly is on a mission right now. He's at the ICPA conference. At the moment of this recording, he's not quite there, but he will be at the time that I'm uploading this, when I get done finishing it. I'm on my little computer editing on Premiere. He'll be at the ICPA conference helping represent the DE with some of our awards and our nominations for some of our coverages this year. So hopefully we come back with a bunch of plaques and everything. But he's a man on a mission, big man, business guy, has a lot going on his plate. Couldn't make it to the podcast this week. So we're going to run the show without him. I'm going to be our host today. And let's just get right into it.
Yeah.
We're going to start with men's basketball. And we had a pretty tough loss last night against Belmont. We won against Illinois State in another tight one. It seems like it's always tight usually, but not last night with men's basketball. It was not even close. Jay Cruz, tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I think one part of these last couple of games that has been good for me, at least as someone who's a fan, is that I kind of understand what our goal is for the rest of the season now. And very simply put, we're 8-7 in the conference. We are going for the fourth spot in the conference tournament, which means we get a double bye, which is huge. We got it last year. You saw how well we played at times against Missouri State and Drake in last year's conference tournament. But in terms of these last couple of games, one big takeaway I had from the Illinois State game is I think this team may lack a little bit of toughness. And I don't mean individual players. I just mean sort of as a team, we kind of let ourselves. Oh, excuse me. Sometimes we sort of let ourselves crumble in the weirdest of ways. In the Illinois State game, another game this year where it felt like we were dominating from start to finish. Everyone was playing really well. I really love the way Troy D'Amico's been playing lately. He's been shooting the three very well, taking good shots that can actually be made. And he wasn't doing that at times this season, but he seems to have come into his own. But in that game against Illinois State, the entire team just puckered down offensively, completely stalled out, completely bogged down. But this is just something we've seen all season, and I feel like every week on this podcast we repeat ourselves because once a week the team has sort of a collapse, and then in the Belmont game, we were in it for a majority of the game, but their guard play really stepped up. Double Zero, I forget his name, had a huge night on us, 26 points. He was great, and so we just couldn't stop them defensively, and our slow-ish style of pace just didn't really hold up. I mean, they were still able to score at will, it seems like. Their leading guy, Malik Diaz, shot 3 of 17, so that was good defensively, but everyone else kind of had a really, really good night against us.
Two things I just want to say about the men's team right now. We were even talking just briefly before the pod about how we don't really have like a speed guy on this team.
Yeah.
I'd like to see that in just future Saluki men's basketball teams, whether that's a recruit, whether that's one of these freshmen. You mentioned A.J. Ferguson is the closest thing that we have to that, but he doesn't have the size. And then talking about like size, I think like guys at the board, guys under the basket like Clarence Rupert, he has that size. He doesn't. I feel like he doesn't really play with it as much though. I feel like teams should kind of fear being around a guy as big as Clarence is, and yet, I mean, he just doesn't play with that type of toughness. So if we had a little bit more toughness at the board, specifically from Clarence, I think this team could be a lot different if we had more speed and size. Yeah. So those are two things that I would love to see in some future Saluki men's teams.
Yeah. I think one thing that has been an encouraging sight all season long, and it seems like he's getting better every single week, is Scotty Abube. And you talk about size. I mean, he's got it. He's got the vertical on him, too. He's a scary player when he's on. But the problem is he doesn't play enough minutes to be impactful on the overall game. Like, he gives us a spark here and there. But, it's just a conditioning thing. It's just a, learn the offense kind of thing. He's still got a few years left, or a couple of years left, to try and get better. And I think he will get better. But one thing I'd like to see as we get toward the end of this season, particularly because of guys like X, Clarence and Trent Brown is I like to see us go really deep in the bench and play guys like Trey Miller and R.J. McGee a little bit more just to keep our guys fresh. And I know we've got some tough games coming up, obviously, on Saturday versus an angry Indiana State team after that loss to Illinois State, which I still can't believe. But it's those kinds of games where I feel like, depending on the game flow, you have the ability to rest some of your good players. That's not a game that I don't know that we're expected to win that necessarily. I'm not saying that we can't, because obviously they are definitely beatable. But if that game gets to a point where it's completely out of hand, and even if it doesn't get out of hand early, if there's 2 minutes left and we're down by 10-15, maybe just take our guys off the court because we don't want to risk injury. So yeah, again, I think getting more guys reps is going to help us out, keeping everyone fresh moving forward.
Remind me again, the guy in Indiana State with the goggles.
Robbie Avila.
Yeah. So I shared earlier with Jay Cruz, I had to go to a Murray State basketball game to help film on their broadcast crew, and that game he absolutely took over. And I mean, I knew nothing about him before then, but he's a star in my books just from watching that game. And I mean, knowing he's gonna be playing, is that a home game against us, or is that
we host them?
Yeah,
Last time we went there, we lost by 29. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah, I think I do. And I'm just worried that we're going to get outpowered, outmatched, just embarrassed by his play and everybody else's play on there.
Yeah.
Last thing I just want to mention about the men's team, we're going to be talking. I guess we're not going to be talking to Trent Brown, but we're having Trent Brown in a class later today.
Yeah.
I think it'll be a very, very interesting conversation with him, talking about his last season with the Salukis, and just how this team is going to be. So look out for that in a future project that I will be a part of, and Jay Cruz will be a part of. Yeah. Our good friend Joey Yonker at the Daily Egyptian news editor will be the interviewer for that one. So watch out for that one.
I still think this weekend, real quick, it'll still be an electric environment in the Banterra Center. But I do just want to say one thing about Indiana State. That loss to Illinois State, that may have ruined their chance at getting into the NCAA tournament without winning the Valley. Because I don't understand and these people aren't watching Indiana State every single day. But if you're part of the NCAA selection committee, you see a team that's capable of losing to a team like Illinois State that is without 2 or 3 of their best players right now. They are. And so that was another reason why that game versus them was a little concerning. But with so many injuries they have, they came into Indiana State, and the Sycamores couldn't handle the pressure of finally being ranked for the first time in, what was it, like, since 1990 or something? I mean, it had been a really, really long time, maybe even longer than that. And they came in there and took their lunch from them. And there was Miles Foster, a player at Illinois State, who was a big part of them coming back against us a little bit. He had Robbie Avila by the throat all game long. Robbie had one of his worst games of the season, and that's just a testament to their toughness. But, yeah, I think Indiana State may have just ruined their chance at getting in without winning our conference tournament. So it's going to be interesting to see kind of how that conversation evolves as the season moves on.
Absolutely. Moving on, we've been talking about this for almost 10 minutes now, so we're going to talk about the other sports.
Yeah.
But, it's not a bad thing talking about men's basketball so much. Women's basketball, we recently lost at home both to Belmont and Murray State. We know very well what Belmont can do to us, just watching how they were oversized against us. It was just a matchup problem for us. We sit at 7-15, 2-10 in the Missouri Valley Conference, and then we're going to start a little bit of a road trip here. We're heading to Evansville tonight. Heading to Indiana State on Saturday, and that's the start of a 4-game road trip. It's just more crunch time, more pressure to get some of these wins to, increase our rank in that tournament spot. You don't want to end up as the 11th seed or 10th seed, but you got to do what you got to do. It'll be an uphill battle if you end up as one of those lower seeds in the conference here. Just one quick thing I just wanted to mention: we are Steel City right now.
Yeah.
Kiera Love and Jaden Mason, they are our leaders right now in the steal game. We average 12.1 steals per game.
Yeah.
That's crazy. That's crazy to think about. Could you imagine if the men's basketball team had 12.1 steals per game?
I mean, that would be insane.
It would be insane.
Insanity.
But, of course, I think there's a vastly different style of play here between men's basketball team and women's basketball team. We mentioned that over and over again, talked your heads off about that type of thing. And I just think it's the nature of women's basketball too. You try to chuck it down the court so much, try to get them off balance on their defense, and it's just gonna kind of happen like that. But also Kelly Bond White's style of play even adds more to that. So I think that's why we sit at, I'm not sure if I mentioned this earlier, we sit at 7th in the whole NCAA in steals per game. That's crazy. That's crazy.
I almost didn't believe you. I had to look it up for myself.
Yeah, no, we really do. I mean, that's insane considering all the other really, really good women's basketball teams in the NCAA. So that's just one small thing I wanted to mention. We need to grab some wins here against some of these. One of these games, we're going to have to budge an upset.
Yes. In
order to get some confidence heading into this tournament time. So, J. Cruz, did you have anything, just small things to add?
Well, I think one reason that we've turned into Steel City, if you will, is because it seems like Kelly has completely flipped her mindset from, okay, we need to be a run-and-gun offensive team, which we still are to a certain extent, but we are completely defense-oriented now, completely and utterly. I want to give a shout-out real quick to Adriana Ketcher, who had 6 steals in the game against Murray State. We are making teams play our style of game. And that may not always come out to wins, but it is encouraging to see that other teams are having to conform to the way we want to play. And so, that's what I would say in terms of a positive. I think we can pick up 2 wins this weekend. I think there's no reason we couldn't against Evansville and Indiana State.
Absolutely, and I don't think Evansville has very many wins in there.
No, we beat them by 39 last time we played against them. So
I would hope for a win coming from that one.
Yeah.
Moving on, softball. You had a very, very, very nice prediction, and that's saying it lightly, last week with Madia Groff, as usual with J. Cruz.
Yeah.
They sit at 3-2 when they just played in the Texas State tournament, but Madia Groff, perfect game in our debut of the season with her sister catching, Rylan. That's insane. And you spoke about it first. You saw her in the preseason. So I just want to give you that special love here.
Appreciate it.
Just with so much talent on this team, we're expecting a lot more of this type of performance from a pitching staff. We obviously got Maddie Eberly, who is our workhorse last season. So 3-2 right now, still very early. Not too much to really add on. Just very excited about this upcoming season. Do you have anything just small to add about this?
It was a long weekend, obviously, playing 5 different games, and so the allure of that initial perfect game on Maddie sort of wore off as we lost a couple of games, but I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Her performance was out of this world. Her and her sister being that twin battery is going to be lethal, just like I said it would last week. And in that first game in particular, we saw a perfect game from our freshman pitcher. Jackie Liz hit a home run, and it was like, we're picking up right where we left off.
We're back.
Still came out with a 3-2 weekend, though. There's like I said, there's no shame in that. I think one thing that Jen Sewell is going to have to figure out as the season goes along is because we have such an abundance of experience and such an abundance of really, really good freshman talent, how are you going to combine that into a daily rotation in matchups, whether you're facing a lefty pitcher or righty pitcher? Do teams tend to slap more, and so what kind of a defensive alignment are you going to have based on that? These are problems that I wouldn't want to have, and that's why she does what she does, and that's why she's been so good at it. I think she will figure it out this weekend. They've got some pretty good tests up ahead, playing a lot of high major schools now. I should say it's 4 Big Ten teams. The Big Ten is not really the greatest softball conference, even though they are a high major team, but they got UC Riverside and Iowa on Friday. Saturday, they get Penn State and the University of Illinois. And then Sunday, they get the Ohio State University. So, it's going to be interesting. I am really excited to see, how they fare. And like I said, I actually expect them to come out at least with another winning record this weekend. I think they can. In the RPI rankings, we're ranked ahead of most, if not all, these teams. I think the expectation should be to win. Don't get paralyzed just by the names of Iowa, Penn State, Illinois, Ohio State, whatever. So, high expectations this weekend once again.
Absolutely. Sticking with baseball, I guess moving on to baseball because we were just talking about
the bigger
softball.
diamond.
The bigger diamond, the longer field, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
Baseball, starting up here tomorrow, they are going to be playing a 3-game series at Northwestern State over in Louisiana, and then on Tuesday, UT Martin as their first couple of games to start the season. Obviously, once again, not conference play, so these games are still very early. We're still learning about this team. Everybody knows that the real season starts when conference play starts.
Yep.
So, again, not too much to say before the season starts for baseball. We lost a lot of high-profile players last season, and it'll be very, very interesting to see where we move on in the post, specifically Kaber Rog life, because he was the big guy that carried our offense last year. Just earlier today, Jake Combs was named preseason All-MVC selection, so that's nice to see some of our pitching staff, recognized for that. We were named number 5 in the preseason polls. So maybe that's a little bit of motivation, Considering last year and how last season ended, we didn't even win a conference game. I had to look that up because I kind of forgot about that team as they got into the postseason. And I realized, oh man, they didn't even win a conference game last in the tournament. So for as high hopes as they had last season, it's kind of surprising to just hear again that they didn't even win a conference game to me. Some other players that are going to be hard to replace that I mentioned, just like Kaber Rog earlier, Ben Chapman, Ryan Rodriguez, amongst others on this team. There's still those expectations, I think, but it's going to be a little bit more challenging transitioning between 2023 to 2024 compared to 2022 and 2023, if that makes sense. That's a really long-winded version of saying this is going to be an interesting start to the season and an interesting transition outside of trying to play without some of these seniors that were really good last season.
Yep. We have no freshmen and sophomores on this team, by the way.
Seriously.
Zero freshmen and sophomores. It's just the age of the transfer portal. It's the age of guys who go to junior colleges and then make their way to the D1 level. That's what they've done, and we've taken advantage of that. We have a crap ton of transfers. I had the honor and privilege of doing all their bios for the SIU website, and it was a lot of work because we have a lot of new players. But there are a couple guys that really, really stood out to me. One, just physically, Trey Cutchin, 6'6", dude, can absolutely hit tanks. These are just some of the scouting reports I've read. And then the guy, Cole Yearsley, as well, hit over 400 in a season. I believe it was in Arizona. So we've got some real talent coming in. I think there's some names we're going to learn here pretty quickly, probably as soon as this weekend, that I think people are really going to enjoy. And I'm really looking forward to getting out to Itchy Jones Stadium later this season because I think it's going to be another good one. I can't really project anything, though. I mean, again, we'll have to see what happens. I do like Mike Hansel, who I believe will be our Friday starter this week. He's been in the program for a long time. He's been here ever since I have. And I got to watch him when he was a sophomore. I believe this is his 5th year because he missed all last season due to injury. But he's got incredible movement on his fastball. I believe he throws a cutter as well, and it was nasty. So just watch out for him. That's another. He'll be my Matty McGraw. Watch out for Mike Hansel this year. Just want to put that out there.
You seem to always have I don't want to call it a bold prediction, but just something to watch for heading into a season, a team, a person, whatever it is.
I just want to say that before the year, I don't know if we talked about this very much. It's written down here. If you don't believe me, we can go back in the history and look. I did say that Xavier Johnson was a sleeper MVC Player of the Year candidate. Before he had even played a game this season, I said that. So just want to put that out there.
Very, very interesting.
I wish I could predict other things better, but I guess I'm just good at predicting the success of players, not necessarily the
teams
themselves. And
yeah,
I don't know. I overthink myself a lot on that.
I love hearing all these interesting predictions by Jake Cruz because a lot of them come out right.
Yeah.
So he's our guy here for our predictions.
I have insider information as well.
Absolutely. Because you're part of athletics and everything too.
I use that to my advantage, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The big mind over there for Jake Cruz.
Yeah.
So that was it here for our Saluki Space. What?
Dogs at the Vet.
Dogs at the Vet. I'm sorry. Saluki Space was last year.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of, we've been over that. So that was it for that. We're going to move on to some college sports here where I'm going to kind of let you take over. I'll pass you the rock. I'm trying to do my Cole Daly impression here. Passing you the rock. What are you going to do with it?
Shoot it.
Shoot it.
We're going to start off with some NBA, though, real quick. I just want to I'm not a huge expert on the NBA. I do pay attention, though, so I kind of get who is playing well and who's not. I want to give you 3 teams, 2 that are trending up, 1 that is trending down, heading into the All-Star weekend this weekend, a weekend that Cole Daly explained last week has lost a lot of luster because the star players just don't really care about things like the dunk contest and three-point contest. Steph Curry will be playing against Sabrina Ionescu in the three-point contest, so that might be worth a watch. I'm probably not going to, though, so don't expect to hear anything from me about that next week. But 3 teams trending up, 3 teams trending down. Heading into All-Star weekend, the Boston Celtics have won 6 games in a row. They are far and away, in my opinion, the best team in the Eastern Conference. Their roster stacked up and down. The addition of Drew Holiday has been worth every single penny, and everything they gave away has been worth it so far. The New York Knicks, a team that is trending down, after winning 8 games in a row, they've lost 4 in a row. And Cole Daly has always talked about how they are one piece away, one star player away from actually being able to make a run in the Eastern Conference. They don't have that, though. As well as Jalen Brunson has been playing, they just don't have that. Finally, a team that probably has a lot of haters. I'm one of them, sort of, just because I want them to be good, but they have one X factor that basically makes them a top 5 team in the NBA or drops them below 15 in the NBA. That's the Dallas Mavericks, Luka Doncic, and of course, what I like to call the Antonio Brown of the NBA, Kyrie Irving. Everyone believes
that's a good comparison.
It's a known fact that he is probably the best ball handler in NBA history. He's one of the best point guards of all time. But the man he just can't stay on the court for various reasons. I don't need to get into all of them. But they have won 6 games in a row heading into the All-Star break. So they are trending up. If they can keep that up, hopefully get out of the play-in and move in higher into the Western Conference standings, because I think the Western Conference is sort of wide open this season. So there's your NBA sort of a.
I want to ask you a quick NBA question. I'm jumping into the NBA world. Joey,
all right, let's do it.
Let's try and just real quick.
Let's do it.
Do you have a pick for MVP yet? Do you? I mean, I know that talk's starting to get rolling here as the season comes to a close.
Yeah,
playoffs starts coming.
It's really, really it's never been more difficult to pick the MVP because there's been all this controversy about they've officially set a limit for how many games you have to play. Joel Embiid did not like that.
Really?
Yeah.
For MVP?
I believe it's 60 games, yes, for MVP. You have to play at least 60 games to win MVP. Joel Embiid does not like that. He's probably the guy who should win it, but the load management thing has been an issue for him in terms of winning awards. So him and then like another guy that Cole Daly has mentioned a lot is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for the Thunder. The Thunder having their best season really since Russell Westbrook was there, and he's the main reason why. I mean, he's an absolute baller. So yeah, those are the 2 that I would say. Luka Doncic is up there as well. Jokic. I mean, a lot of the typical guys. But yeah, that's Gilgeous-Alexander has really elevated his team, and so in terms of most valuable player, it should probably be him. But that doesn't mean that he's going to win it, obviously, because it's more of a popularity contest than anything. So.
He's on the Thunder.
Thunder.
Said?
Yep.
I want to shout out my good friend from high school, Caleb Toberman. Big OKC Thunder fan. Big OKC Thunder fan.
Shout out Caleb.
Moving on. I'll let you take it from here.
Absolutely. So that was NBA. Let's get into college basketball. This is my wheelhouse, folks. I mean, this is what I study for an unhealthy amount of days per year. So I've got 2 teams that I'm buying that are playing each other this weekend. One is Texas Tech, who is unranked. They probably should be, though. They're going on the road at number 10 Iowa State. I think this will be an incredible game. Texas Tech coming off a huge win versus Kansas earlier this week, destroyed them on what I believe was Tuesday night. Pop Isaacs, one of the most electrifying players in the league, in the country, Going to be so fun to watch. And Iowa State, just a perfect, well-oiled machine of a team that has shot up the rankings this season. They are a legit contender to make a run in the NCAA tournament. Seemingly every big game they have, if they don't win, they're at least close. So I love this Iowa State team. Now, the biggest game this weekend, in terms of rankings and buzz around it, the number 4 Marquette Golden Eagles are going on the road at the number 1 UConn Huskies, as you are well aware of. UConn won the national championship last year. which, by the way, we're 1 month away from having a bracket in our hands. I cannot wait to fill
I
out
was
a
just
bracket.
thinking about that last week.
Yeah.
I'm not even like a basketball fan, but it's still so fun.
There's just something great about that. And UConn will be a team that many, many people have as their champion this year. Marquette maybe too. They're all of a sudden ranked number 4. They just keep winning. We haven't really heard a lot about them because they haven't really beaten anyone crazy good, but this is their chance this weekend. They're led by Tyler Kolak, one of the best point guards in the country. And UConn, though, I mean, they are just a juggernaut. And they are rebounding after last season in a way that teams typically don't do after they win a national championship. They have just completely reloaded. Stephon Castle, Donovan Clingan. I could go on and on through their roster. They're just a monster. Last game, and this is two teams that I talk about seemingly every week. The Kentucky Wildcats are going on the road at the Auburn Tigers. I make an excuse to talk about Auburn every single week. I just love this team so much. You already know why. But I am selling Kentucky now. Kentucky let Gonzaga come into their home arena last weekend, put up 89 points, beat Kentucky. And I've just decided that Kentucky has completely given up on playing defense. I'm not going to buy them anymore. I'm not going to fall for this trick. Even if they win this game in Auburn, I don't care. They're done. They don't care about defense. This game, Joy, legitimately, it might be like a 120 to 100 game. Seriously, that's how many points are going to be scored. No defense will be played in this game.
In a college basketball game.
Yes, and Kentucky, that's the thing is they don't play defense, but they also have an incredible offense. I mean, they have some of the best guard play in the country. They're going to put probably 3 different NBA players in the top 15 of the draft probably. I mean, that's how great their guard play is. But in terms of making a tournament run, in terms of winning a game like this, I don't think it's going to happen. So they just don't play defense.
I remember last week Cole Daly was ratting so much on Gonzaga a little bit.
He was
a hater.
Yeah, he hated. This is typically what happens. He hates on a team, and I tell him, no, don't hate on this team because they're going to bite you in the butt. And what happened? They bit him in the butt. All right.
They listen to the Inside Sports podcast.
They absolutely listen to the Inside Sports. Shout out Gonzaga. I might just keep riding them just to make him mad. So those are the 3 games to watch this weekend. There's still many more great games. Check the schedule. Sit down and watch these games. Just do. Watch these games and then come out to the Banterra Center for the nightcap to watch the Dogs take on number 23 Indiana State. The first game we're hosting a ranked opponent since 2022 when Loyola was in the conference and they were ranked. So what a game that's going to be. What a Saturday of college basketball.
I remember.
Last thing I want to just say here, I'm going to give you a possible champions update via the KenPom rankings. The KenPom rankings, just a quick review. The last many champions have had one thing in common. They've been ranked in the top 40 of the KenPom offense and top 22, very weirdly specific number, of the KenPom defense. So I did some more calculations today. I looked up what teams fit that criteria right now. We're down to 9. I believe a couple of weeks ago I had it at 11, but now we're down to 9 teams that, according to the KenPom rankings, can actually win the national championship. In order, Houston, Purdue, UConn, Auburn, Arizona, Tennessee, North Carolina, Marquette, and the team that nobody wants to talk about, another team that Cole Daly hates that I'm going to continue to ride just to make him mad, the Michigan State Spartans, who I believe are 16-9. They just got a win on Wednesday night against Penn State. I'm going to buy Michigan State. Like I said, their roster to me is just too good to not make another run this season. Other teams that stick out to me, a couple that I'm not buying at all, Arizona and Tennessee. Again, I talked a lot about this podcast this season about laws in sports. There are just certain things that are meant to happen and will always be that way. Mm-hmm. Arizona will fumble the bag early in the NCAA tournament. So will Tennessee, and even in a worse fashion. They always just figure out a way to do it, especially when people are actually buying them. People are with Tennessee this year, but I just don't see it.
From an outsider's perspective, Tennessee, I always hear a lot of talk about Tennessee in all sports, but yet I feel like they haven't won anything huge.
Well, they have a gargantuan fan base, and that means a huge fan base. I mean, they're a cult. They have so many people that root for them. Don't really know why. I don't know if it's because of Dolly Parton or Peyton Manning or something, but for some reason they just have a crap ton of fans. So that's why you always hear about them. But they did just lose at Texas A&M the other day. They got blown out at Texas A&M, and A&M's not a great team. So yeah, that was kind of scary to see. I love Dalton Connect. I love the way that their team's built, but Rick Barnes, their coach, just has a history of collapsing in the biggest moments. So I'm not necessarily going to buy them for the national championship. The teams that I am though: Houston, Purdue, UConn, obviously Auburn, North Carolina, Marquette. They're kind of on the edge. So is Michigan State. But I think those top four: Houston, Purdue, UConn, and Auburn. Those are going to be probably the four most common champions we see in brackets this year. I always love, like, you know, how it comes out on a Sunday, and then by Monday or Tuesday they have stats of like what percentage of brackets have this team winning or whatever. Mm-hmm. I would say that those four teams will probably have the most people pick them as champions. Maybe not Auburn because they're not ranked really high, but yeah, maybe North Carolina or something. But yeah,
was this your unofficial crowning yourself as an Auburn fan? Do you have a college basketball team you root for?
Oh, no, yeah.
Besides the Dogs?
No, I root for Ohio State just as hard as I do for their football team.
Okay. I didn't realize that.
The reason I don't talk about it is because they suck, and they just fired their coach this past weekend, yesterday. Actually, on Wednesday, they fired their coach because they're just awful. And we've had back-to-back top 10 recruiting classes, and we still stink. So that's just unacceptable. We have standards at this program. Mm-hmm. Some teams will let their program be mediocre for years on end, but we don't do that at Ohio State. So, there's not too much to talk about there.
Should the football team do the same?
No, not at all. They've had an incredible offseason.
Complaining, or I guess maybe not necessarily complaining. We're just talking about Ryan Day a lot.
Well, Cole doesn't like Ryan Day. He's part of this
Cole.
Little, like, I don't know, this sort of little, I don't want to say cult again, but like little fan section of the college football world that just hates Ryan Day for some. He's not a hateable guy. I don't get it. Maybe we'll have to have a whole other podcast.
Cole's just a hater.
He's a hater.
That's what I learned.
He's a hater. But I mean, anyway, there's not too much to talk about there. I guess I will have to pick another team to root for, and I guess if I were to pick one, it'd be either Auburn or Michigan State, probably. Those are the two teams, and Gonzaga. Those are the three teams I'm going to hitch my wagon to as we head toward March. We are 1 month away, 1 month and 2 days away from having a bracket in our hands. I always like to print them out. So I'm going to have one in my hands right here on this podcast, and I will show everybody what I've got. So anyway, that's all I've got for college basketball. Joey, let's get into it.
Oh, yeah.
You already know what we're going to talk about.
We're going to talk about the NFL here, and we had the biggest NFL day ever. But yeah, actually, it's not an extent to say ever, because that Super Bowl was the most watched sports telecast, or NFL telecast ever, I should say, ever. That's crazy to see. Like, a lot of people are saying that the NFL used to say, I guess, that the NFL is dying, and that's just couldn't be farther from the truth. Yeah. Like, ever since 2016, 2017, all that matter. We're not going to get into politics here on this, but a lot of people wanted the NFL to die, thought the NFL was going to start dying after that. Yeah. And that's just it's farther from the truth. This Super Bowl, I think, regardless of the teams that played in it, the stars that were in this game, I think was fantastic, the way it played out.
Oh, my gosh.
In a game where you have Patrick Mahomes, he's going to come back from some type of a deficit here, and it's going to shock you, crazy. But I mean, I'll be honest. I think this type of deficit that he had isn't that crazy. Like, no. I think ESPN was trying to blow this up more than it really was. Like, oh my gosh, he came back from 10 down at well, it was 10-3 at halftime.
Yeah.
Right.
Because Buck created a field goal.
Yeah, and they got a field goal right before half, so it was 10-3. That's not that crazy. Like, I don't even know if yes, it's a comeback, but I mean, you know what I mean? Like, 7 points at half, like, I don't know. But then you could also talk about it in another way, like the way that was going at that given time. Like, it looked like it was going to be a really defensive game. Yeah. And I'll admit, like, at halftime, I was like, man, this game reminds me a lot, of course, of that Patriots-Rams Super Bowl a couple years ago. What was that, 13-3 final? Yeah. I was like, I wouldn't be surprised if neither one of these teams score again the rest of the game. It took a trick play for the Niners just to get a touchdown, for Christian McCaffrey to find the end zone, who he always somehow figures out a way to find the end zone. Mm-hmm. I don't know. That's just how the game was going at that point, and then it kind of turned right at halftime when was it the Niners punt returner fumbled that, and then the Chiefs got the ball, scored right away. They took the lead then. So
13-10, yeah.
Yeah, 13-10. So the Chiefs started off the second half, got a field goal, I think. No.
Yep. Yeah, you're right.
No, I don't think so, because I think Pacheco fumbled in the red zone
I thought
early
that was the
on.
first half, though.
It might have been. I know
This is
Pacheco.
terrible journalism. Hold on.
Yeah, terrible journalism. But anyways, I know Pacheco fumbled at some point in that game. That would have given.
It was first half.
It was first half. Okay.
Yeah.
That would have given the Chiefs, a field goal at the very least, I would think, because Butker can just kick from anywhere perfectly, and when he's playing the Super Bowl, he's clutch. He's amazing. But the way that game was going up to that point, it seemed like it was going to be a low-scoring game, and it ended up being a bit more. Granted, they had overtime to add some more points to the total of this game.
Mm-hmm.
I remember seeing the over-under 47.5, and it
depending on where you got it, yeah.
Yeah, depending on where you got it, it was 47.5, and because they scored the overtime touchdown, they don't get to kick the field goal. So that means because they didn't get to kick the field goal, the over didn't hit. I just thought that's a bad beat if I've ever seen it.
Yeah, it was crazy.
I know that's definitely going to be on ESPN's bad beats this week.
Oh yeah,
but,
for sure.
Anyways, no, that game was terrific. I personally, as a Packers fan, I love to see the downfall of the 49ers, of course, which is unsurprising. But, Patrick Mahomes, once again, proves everybody wrong. And are we surprised anymore? Are we surprised?
No, not at all.
No.
And the thing that has been a little delayed, for me at least, is like, I don't know that I hate the Chiefs yet, but we're getting close. Because it's not that I hate them because they do anything like terrible. I don't really like to think about the whole Swift-Kelsey thing. To me, it's just a bunch of hoopla that casuals like to talk about, but I'm not a casual, okay? Look, the Chiefs are they have done the perfect sort of transition in the Patrick Mahomes era. They started off the Patrick Mahomes era with high-flying offense, lackluster defense, to say the least. Now, they did still win a Super Bowl with that formula, but they had to make a transition once they had to start paying Patrick Mahomes, $30, $40, $50 million a year, depending on the year. It's broken down into different increments. But they have found a way to sustain his career and officially begin a dynasty the exact same way the Patriots did, and that is by building an elite young defense. And San Francisco, they could the only sort of big play offense that they had in that game was Juwan Jennings, who was taking Kansas City's second, third, and fourth corners at times, and that was the only reason he was getting open. Debo was rendered mostly ineffective. CMC did about everything he could have done in that game. I mean, he willed the 49ers to what was almost a Super Bowl win at multiple occasions.
George Kittle was
completely. He was gone. Did he play that game? Did he play?
You wouldn't have thought so.
Like, the thing that sucks, and if I was a Niners fan, I genuinely don't know if I'd ever watch another football game because all the weird fluke injuries as well with Dre Greenlaw running off the sideline and what did they say, he tore his ACL or something?
Yeah, it was his Achilles.
His Achilles, that's what it was. And with all the injuries that happened, and CMC was shaken up for a time, and so was Debo, just everything that could have gone wrong in that game went wrong. And yet, they still had an opportunity to win at the end. And the fact that it didn't happen again, you just have to sit and wonder, like, how much more motivation are these guys going to have to go through this process? Because even after last year, so many quarterback injuries that you never really had the feeling that they were actually going to make a run at it this year. But it seemed like they had everyone healthy heading into this game. And the turf just destroyed them multiple times. And you just hate to see that. It's another year where the turf helps the Chiefs out. Kind of weird how that works, isn't it? But anyway, but no, you just have to respect what the Chiefs have done. And I don't know if they'll ever become as hateable as the Patriots, because another reason the Patriots became hateable was because of all the cheating scandals and Spygate, and then of course Deflategate and whatnot, and just this sort of random Patriots fans popping up out of nowhere, people who had never watched football were all of a sudden the biggest, loudest Patriots fans.
And we're going to see that with the Chiefs.
That's going to happen with the Chiefs if it hasn't already. You're seeing it with a bunch of young girls over the country because of Taylor Swift. So I mean, we're already sort of seeing it, but you can't really hate those people. They don't really care about the football, right? They just it's more of a status symbol, if you will.
Exactly, that's where I was going with that.
But again, for the Niners, Kyle Shanahan, a couple questions have to be asked. How do they not know the rules of overtime?
Yeah.
And the second thing, why would you even say that in a post-game conference? Because you know that everyone's going to be like, wait, what? And everyone's going to remember that Super Bowl because you decided to let the Chiefs have the ball second. And so they knew exactly what they had to do to win the game. Now, with that being said, Andy Reid almost one-upped him with terrible coaching decisions. The fact that they had first and goal with 20 seconds left in overtime, and they let that clock go all the way down to 5 seconds on first down, because if the clock would have hit 0, the game would have been over. The Niners would have won. I don't know if people realize that.
Yeah, no, I mean,
like that's seen as an incredible decision, and the reason he did it was probably because he saw, like, okay, this is a perfect alignment. Like, we just have to do this now so we can win the game or something like that. But Andy Reid was 3 seconds away from making maybe one of the biggest coaching blunders in history. And nobody has talked about that this week. Literally zero people I've heard zero people talk about that this week. And I thought it was crazy for a second. So I looked it up, like, so what are the overtime rules? Because if they would have just continued from, like, first, second, and goal, that's one thing. But no, people don't realize that he literally limited himself to maybe 1 or 2 plays on the goal line, as opposed to using his timeouts and giving himself more of an opportunity.
Was the idea he could just run that clock because he had – what do they have 2 timeouts in overtime?
Yeah,
one
they did.
Timeout.
Mm-hmm.
So they had 2 timeouts. They could just run that clock as much as they wanted because you can just call a timeout whenever. But then that still doesn't even make any sense.
No, because by the time that Hardman caught that touchdown, there was 3 seconds left. So in a hypothetical world where that was incomplete, you're talking about a second and goal, and you've got 1 play left when you could have used 2 timeouts and gotten all 4 downs.
Both of those timeouts would just go to waste.
But like I said, and I'd have to watch the film just to confirm this, but I'm sure the reason that he did it was because he probably saw some form of personnel that the Niners had on the field that made him think, okay, I don't want to call a timeout and give them a chance to recoup. I want to just run this play now because we have what we want. And they ran the corn dog play or whatever it is to Mecole Hardman. And I love the quote after when Mecole Hardman said he blacked out when he caught it. I think I probably would too. I'd probably drop the ball, honestly, if I was that wide open.
I would forget everything that was going on around me.
In that situation, I'd almost rather be sort of covered than be wide open. Like, 'cause if you're wide open, you have so much time to think about it. But obviously,
can you imagine the pressure, like, of the ball coming to you on a potential championship winning play?
Yeah.
Like, if you drop that, you forever. Yeah. Well, if you drop that and they don't score a touchdown on the next play, forever you'll be remembered. For that team's history. Yeah. Now, I mean, I guess you could think of it as either way you'll be remembered because you scored the game-winning touchdown or you dropped the game-winning touchdown for a championship game like that. Yeah. So I can't imagine the pressure that Mecole Hardman had on a given play like that. Some things I just wanted to bring up. Well, first off, I'll start off with the Andy Reid versus Kyle Shanahan thing, and I think some things. Shout out Theo Ash. He brought up this little debate. He is a TikToker, but he's a very analytical TikToker on the NFL side of TikTok and everything. And he brought up this debate coming into the Super Bowl, and I want to bring it to this podcast because I think it's a beautiful conversation here.
Sure.
Andy Reid has built this self-sustaining machine on the Chiefs, building that type of roster on offense. And Kyle Shanahan is kind of the opposite end. Kyle Shanahan is more the type that he needs to oversee the whole operation 24/7 all the time. I need to be responsible for where everyone's going at all times on each given play. And Theo Ash even brought up that even during practice and even in game preparation, he's always in on some type of like video chat call on every single conference meeting with every single position. So he's always overseeing every given thing that happens within his team. And Andy Reid is kind of, in a way, the opposite end, because he gives his players full freedom to be able to choose what plays they need to do at a given time. He can trust his players, not to mention, obviously, when you have players with the type of talent that Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce have, you can do that. But this year, especially in a season when we've nonstop, at least during the regular season, nonstop talked about how bad this wide receiver core is for the Chiefs and how it's going to come back and bite them in the butt in the playoffs. I have said that on this podcast, that it's going to come back and bite them in the butt, and it never did. It never did. He has enough trust into these guys that they can get plays, they can create plays on the run, on the go, and you just don't have that in Kyle Shanahan's offense. No. That's an element that you can't coach so much. It just kind of comes natural. Yeah. And it's kind of the way that you build your roster too. I'm sure that's an asset that they were thinking about when they draft a player like Patrick Mahomes, who can create plays on the run like that. Yeah. The Niners had a player like that somewhat. Now, I wasn't the biggest college guy, so I don't know too much about Trey Lance, but from what I've seen, he has some of that ability to create plays on the run and use his legs a little bit here and there too. But I don't think he was the greatest before the play started. No. Audibling, stuff like that. It's ultimately up to Kyle Shanahan to choose what players he wants to have in his offense, and it seems like he chooses the players that are the most obedient ones, if that makes sense. I mean, you kind of see that in like Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy. Yeah. They play their part very, very well. Sure. Specifically in the quarterback position. I guess I can't specifically talk about other players too, but I think you just need that in a quarterback, and they need to draft some really athletic quarterback, I think, that can make plays on the run, in my opinion. Yeah. I don't know if you had anything to add on about this. It's just a discussion about the style of coaching, I guess. Yeah. One succeeded and one didn't here.
Well, I would tell you that the most obedient quarterback in football is Patrick Mahomes, because he doesn't. There's sort of it speaks to the evolution, like I mentioned earlier, of this Chiefs team, because what Andy Reid does better than any coach in the league, Matt LaFleur is like this too, so shout out to him, but he doesn't coach every team the same way. Like I mentioned earlier, in 2018-19, when they had Tyreek Hill, right, they were a passing offense, strictly. Get the ball to Tyreek Hill, get the ball to Travis Kelce, let them win the game. They got Pacheco, who has received a lot of hate on this podcast. Love me some Isaiah Pacheco. He did have one bad fumble in this game. But this year's Kansas City Chiefs offense was running, first and foremost, with Isaiah Pacheco. And then it was use Travis Kelce, use the wide receivers when you can. But again, the core of their offense was running the ball, and Mahomes even running the ball sometimes. That one zone read that they ran toward the end of the game, incredible play call there. Andy Reid is not beholden to anybody. He does not care if Travis Kelce comes out with 10 receptions and 120 yards, even if he's on paper the best receiver. He just wants to win the game more than any other coach. He spreads the ball around. There's no egos on this Chiefs team. And the Niners, they probably have a little bit more of an ego thing, but they're built the same way. I think both teams are built from a roster standpoint similarly in that they don't try to make somebody good. If you're good, then they're going to play to your strength. If you're not good at something, then they're just not going to call that. Other teams in the league make that mistake all the time. The Ravens made that mistake in the AFC Championship game, trying to have Lamar throw the ball 40 times when they're the number one rushing team in the entire freaking NFL. And that screwed them. And Andy Reid just wants to win. That's all he wants to do. Kyle Shanahan, it feels like at times goes away from that. But in terms of how the teams are built, they're built very similarly. But Andy Reid he just wins. Again, I'll say it again. He just wins. There's no bit. There's no facade. There's no question about it. He wants to win the game, and that's all he cares about.
And I mean, I'm so glad you just mentioned that type of. I don't even know what you call it, but that type of mentality with Andy Reid. He doesn't care about anything else in the no ego thing. Years ago, when they got rid of Tyreek Hill, I mean, who was going to foresee them winning two championships in a row after losing him right after dropping the AFC Championship in overtime against the Bengals? Like, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said who could foresee them winning 2 Super Bowls because, I mean, yes, I think
the Chiefs. Yeah,
they're the Chiefs, but you could argue Patrick Mahomes is a better player for losing Tyreek Hill.
Yeah,
I would say so.
Yeah,
and I think Andy Reid was thinking about that when choosing to not sign Tyreek Hill again to a bigger contract. Because I mean, what a star player and difference maker he is on an offense like the Chiefs too, and they just got rid of him like it was nothing.
Yeah.
So to think that they're where they're at now, even though that they lost Tyreek Hill, like that's insane. Yeah. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. And someone else who deserves more credit for it, who I have written down here that I just typed up a little bit ago, Steve Spagnuolo. Yeah. We need to start talking about him as we need to put more respect on his name just in general because he's coached a very, very good Super Bowl in 4 years in a no, I don't want to say
he has 4 rings.
He has 4 rings.
Yeah.
So he's been in the Super Bowl 2 years in a row. And then he lost against Brady when they put up like 30 points against the Bucs. Mm-hmm. But in the Super Bowls that he's coached in, he's been very, very efficient, very, very good. He's coached a very, very good game plan. And especially this one against a really, really efficient Niners offense. Limiting Christian McCaffrey, shutting out George Kittle. Yeah. Man, what a guy he is. He needs more respect amongst this league. Yeah. I kind of just forget about him in all the defensive coordinator names, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, that Chiefs defense, again, like I said, they've completely shifted their focus to – they've almost gone back in time, running the ball and playing incredible defense. Their defense is miraculously incredible. Trent McDuffie had an incredible Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And then Chris Jones, every big moment in that game where they needed someone on defense to make a play, McDuffie and then Chris Jones getting in Brock Purdy's face. I mean, they just find a way, and it's because of their elite coaching staff. And it's because of their players buying in to the system and running it to perfection in the name of winning. And that's really all it is.
Nick Bolton too, L'Jarius Sneed, Justin Reed, all those guys deserve so much credit. Like for Spagnuolo to do this well at coaching with this young of a defense, terrific. Guy needs more respect amongst this league. I'm going to, from now on, give him my respect a lot more as an elite defensive coordinator. Now, earlier, I'm going to rewind a little bit back earlier. You were mentioning that just a lot of things just kind of went wrong for the Niners and just Dre Greenlaw's injury, just really random. But you kind of saw that in the week leading up to it. Someone pulled the fire alarm at their hotel. There's that story. But then I also heard that the fire alarm was pulled at like 6:03 in the morning. Like, oh yeah, that's weird. That's not that early, and they were complaining about it as if it was like 3 a.m., 4 a.m. So I just thought that was kind of funny. And then they were complaining about the turf at UNLV's practice facility, and how that's not up to NFL standards. Right. Me as a Packers fan, like I have some personal vendetta against the Niners, of course. Yeah. I view that as really, really annoying, and I'm biased against it. So I'm trying to eliminate this bias because I just think those two things specifically are the most annoying things in the world. Yeah. But regardless, it's a little funny to hear all these complaints that they have that might get blown up into a little bit more than it should be. And then just a random injury like that by Dre Greenlaw, like, just seems like what did they do? why is this happening? Why are all these things happening against the 49ers leading up into the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
And then the Chiefs win, and that could possibly bring up more questions. Like, oh my gosh, was the NFL against the 49ers?
No.
But I don't want to overreact here on this podcast. So
No, I mean, that's the fire alarm story got me. I mean, the Niners just, I'm honestly at a loss for words. It just sucks. Like I just try to picture being a Niners fan, and heading into this game, I as someone who was rooting for them, I picked the Chiefs, but I was rooting for the Niners. I came into this game with dread, that feeling of dread. But ultimately, the way that the game went was exactly how you would have wanted it to go if you were a Niners fan.
Yeah.
But you cannot make those one or two huge mistakes that completely changes the game. I would argue, and obviously this does not matter at all, that they outplayed Kansas City in that game. But because you're talking about the muffed punt led to 7 points, right? Talking about a fumble by McCaffrey on the first drive of the game that was looking like there was going to have at least 3 points. So let's say 10 points, right? There's 10 points completely gone right there. And then, of course, the blunder in overtime.
Yeah.
It's heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking.
I mentioned earlier how the first half just kind of, it felt like it was going to be a really low-scoring game, but I was not feeling good about a Chiefs win after that first drive.
They couldn't do anything.
Third quarter. Yeah.
I was very shocked at how well the Niners' defensive line played.
Yes, absolutely.
They dominated the Chiefs.
They were dominating them up front, and it flipped the switch like that. I think partially because of Patrick Mahomes' legs, they had to kind of respect the run with him.
Yeah.
He was number 2 in rushing yards in this game, only by 14 to McCaffrey. That's crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
That's crazy. I'm sure somebody was like licking their chops, realizing, that put a bet on Patrick Mahomes to be the leader in rushing yards for this game, heading into that overtime. Like, man, if he just gets one more scramble in this, but yeah. It was not looking like a Chiefs win early on.
No.
I was really starting to feel scared for myself because I didn't want to see the Niners win as a Packers fan. But thankfully for my own sanity and sake, the Chiefs won.
Yeah.
Beautiful Super Bowl. Beautiful way it went out in that second half. And, I'm sad this football's over.
Yeah, I am too. But honestly, from an NFL standpoint, at least, I've never been more ready for the offseason. Yeah. Because my team has a lot to look forward to in the offseason.
Oh, yeah.
And B, I don't know if I can deal with this Kelsey Swift stuff.
Oh, yeah. I'm just glad that's done for
Hopefully
a while.
they're broken up by the beginning of next season.
I guess we'll see. We got a lot of offseason to figure out if they're going to last for a relationship-wise. I can't believe we're even talking about this. But, yeah, what an amazing Super Bowl. I guess this is our last NFL segment.
Until draft season.
Because we always do our little mock drafts and what we want to talk about.
I need at least a month and a half off, though. Give me, until April, and then we can talk about draft stuff. Unless, the Bears make a move before then. But
I at least want to think about baseball and the high hopes that the Chicago Cubs have. March Madness, too. Yeah. After the Cubs finally re-signed Cody Bellinger, eventually. It'll be a beautiful off season of just relaxation from the Taylor Swift stuff.
I don't know that an NFL season has ever taken more out of me than this one did. It just feels like, and it's not like I watched more games than I ever have, but just the storylines were just exhausting. It's particularly with Kansas City. So storylines were exhausting,
and it's going to be even more next season.
Probably, yeah.
I would say so. Maybe okay. I take that back, actually. It might not be this bad, but the spotlight's still going to be on them, of course.
For sure.
And it will be for years to come when you have Patrick Mahomes as a quarterback. So
definitely.
Beautiful NFL season. We're going to move on. What did you learn this week, Jay Cruz?
Well, I learned, speaking of which, just to put a little cherry on top of what I just said, 2023 football season was the year of people winning who did not deserve it, and or just the last team people would want to see win it. Obviously, in college football, the Michigan football Wolverines won it. There will always be an asterisk. Everybody knows that. People stuck in the maze haze are just living in complete denial. But, of course, Kansas City Chiefs as well. A team that, by the way, According to the stat called DVOA, I don't even know what that stands for. The Chiefs' road to the Super Bowl was the hardest in NFL history.
Yeah.
The hardest, and obviously it is. Yeah, they played the Dolphins. They played at the Bills, at the Ravens. That Ravens game too, by the way. I mean, people act like the Ravens just suck. Again, just like the Niners, they were 2 plays away from winning that game.
Yeah.
2 plays away from it. Anyway, I guess maybe I do hate the Chiefs, honestly, the more I think about it. Because they just keep skating by all these teams making 2 big mistakes. Whatever. But all that being said, there is a God out there. It was just announced earlier this morning, Thursday, February 15th, that the new college football game is coming out this summer.
I meant to ask you about that.
The new college football game is coming. EA put out a little bit of a trailer with somebody sewing together jerseys on the field of the Rose Bowl. And May is when they're going to do the full release of like the trailer or something.
Gameplay too.
I am more than excited for this. I don't know that I've ever been more excited for any game in my entire life. I'm going to play the crap out of this game. I'm going to spend an unhealthy amount of hours playing this game. It's what we need right now. It's what America needs right now, especially in this year, and especially given the way that this sports year went. We need something to take away the stress. Well, it might cause more stress for some people, but it's just great. And for all the college football fans out there who have been playing NCAA 14 for the last 10 years, playing the exact same game, I personally think that if they just copy that game completely, maybe update the graphics a little bit, and just put that game out and with updated rosters, I'll be completely fine. I'd be completely fine with no updates other than rosters. I just need a new college football game so that I can take all these obscure programs to national championships. So
I will be buying this game and playing it as an effort to try to familiarize myself more in the college football landscape. I think it's beautiful for a guy like me who's mostly into the NFL, not know as much as college. We could get into a whole discussion about myself and wanting to get into the college football landscape, college basketball landscape, but not knowing where to start. There's just so many players and everything. Mm-hmm. But, I love to see it too, Jay Cruz. I'm kind of with you there. But that's not what did I learn this week. What I learned this week, I need to listen to more Usher.
Yeah, same.
Short story here that I explained to Jay Cruz before the halftime show, or before our podcast. I wasn't able to watch the halftime show live. Because I don't want to get canceled. I'll leave the reasoning out of here, but I wasn't able to leave the halftime show live, and I was able to watch it on a YouTube video later that night. And man, what a really, really good performance. He has some bops that I kind of just forgot about.
Yeah.
Like I think My Boo is probably my favorite.
Okay.
I'm not going to start singing it because no one wants to hear my singing. I'm not going to, but I think My Boo is probably my favorite one. Terrific performance.
Yeah.
Not much else to say there. I love Usher. No, I'm a number one Usher fan. Joey Bernard.
Number one Usher fan?
No, I'm not number one Usher fan. But I'll listen to more Usher.
Shout out to Swizz Beats, by the way.
Mm-hmm. I was just saying to
Alicia Keys' boyfriend or husband. Usher kind of cuddled up to her a little bit in the halftime performance.
Oh, yes.
You remember that?
Yes, I do remember that.
I don't know if they're married, but I know that they're together. And I noticed that in real time. I did get to watch the halftime show. Yeah, they are married. They've been married for 14 years.
Oh, just a small little note.
So, like, that was kind of interesting. Yeah. I don't know that, and given Usher's history, I don't know that that's the guy you would even. I mean, I know it's just a business. Like, I know that's part of the show, but like, I don't know. I wasn't really comfortable watching that, and I'm not even married to Alicia Keys. So if I was, I wouldn't be here right now. I'll tell you that.
I don't know why that reaction from you was funny. Your eyeballs there.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a very, very good halftime show. I'd put it up there in top 5 that I've seen.
Whoa.
Top 5 halftime shows that I've seen.
Okay.
In like the past, 12 years since I've been watching Super Bowl halftime shows, or I'll give it
shout
14,
out Left Shark.
15.
Yep.
Yeah. More Usher. I'm gonna insert here in the editing Cole Daly's thoughts on the Super Bowl because I forgot he said he told me earlier he was gonna send me a video of his reaction. So you're going to hear it right now. His thoughts on the Super Bowl.
All in all, I think good Super Bowl. I think Mahomes is top 3 quarterback of all time, guaranteed. I have him 2, but he's not catching Brady anytime soon. I think I like Purdy a lot better than I used to during this playoff run. I think Trent McDuffie could have won Super Bowl MVP if Mahomes did not. And I just think great overtime, great atmosphere. Although I wasn't super pumped for the Super Bowl, and I don't particularly like the 2 teams that were playing, I think all in all, it was good and was a great finale to the NFL season.
That was Cole Daly's thoughts on the Super Bowl here. Yeah, what a beautiful podcast we just had.
Beautiful podcast.
This is the Inside Sports Podcast, episode 19. With the DE capitalized. Remember that always. Make sure to like the video and follow us on Spotify and YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. Oh my gosh, Cole Daly knows all these.
Nah, he's really good at it.
Yeah, please leave a comment on YouTube if you can. Follow us on all our social medias. And have a good day. Join us next week for some more.